to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the quotes that came out of the mouth of Joe Judge regarding the New York Giants schedule this season. Of course, I made my video on this, gave my thoughts on the schedule, and we all knew going in that the Giants were going to have a very challenging schedule. It's part of the reason why I think we need to be patient this year. It's why I continue to express it, especially when you look at the schedule, you factor in they're a young team. It's hard to see this team making the playoffs this year. It's just being honest. And maybe they'll surprise people. I never rule it out. The NFL, you can't judge teams before the year starts. You don't know what the teams are going to look like when you play week 6 or week 7. So it's very hard to predict what a team's going to do before a year starts, but it looks to be a challenging season going in. The AFC North, of course, the Steelers are always at least competitive. The Browns look to be a very good team, and obviously the Ravens might be the best team in football. As far as the NFC West goes, I mean, the 49ers went to the Super Bowl last year. The Seahawks are still very good with Russell Wilson. A lot of people seem to think the Cardinals are going to take a step up, and the Rams, well, they were at a Super Bowl 2 years ago, and we'll see how they play this year, but they play a tough schedule. On top of that, they play the Bucs, who just added Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady. So the Giants have a challenge this year, and Joe Judge talked about that. He talked about some of the teams we'll be playing. He talked about how the New York Giants will prepare on a weekly basis in terms of rest days, things of that nature. So I wanted to jump into all the quotes by Joe Judge talking about the New York Giants schedule, talking about how they will approach game day. So let's jump into some of the quotes by Judge regarding the New York Giants. The first quote I actually wanted to show you guys was this one, and this was him being asked about how the New York Giants plan to prepare for game day. How do they plan to rest their players? What day will they do that? I suppose every coach has a different day, on a different method on how they go about preparing for the game. I'd say for the most part, historically, we've gone out on Fridays and given them an extra day to get out there and get acclimated to a few things, Judge said via Giants.com, but that's nothing that's locked in concrete. We'll talk as a coaching staff and make sure we hammer what we think is best for this team. And right there, to me, flexibility. We're not going to have a set plan every week. We're going to have a different plan based on the conditions, based on the team we're playing each and every week. That's the way I take that quote. And he's also saying, I'm not a dictator, which is what you love to hear. I think a lot of times you have a head coach that is set in his ways. He's not willing to listen to other people on the coaching staff to get their opinion, on how they should operate. Judge seems to be the opposite of that. He wants the input of Jason Garrett, of everybody on the staff, and that's basically what he's saying there. To be honest with you, we'll have a game plan to go out there early and be prepared to cancel the extra day if we need to. Do as well as get a feel for how our team goes throughout the season. And again, versatility. He's talking about things could change on a week-to-week basis. And in the NFL, more so than any sport, you need to be flexible. The game is always changing. Next quote we're going to bring up. For me, any game is going to have the same amount of juice. This talking about his opening day, his first game as a coach, Monday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this may not be the case if he was put on a lie detector test. I would think any head coach making their debut game going against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football is probably going to be a little extra amped up. I think that's just common sense. But he says the right things here, and he talks about basically saying we're going to be as prepared as we would week 1 as we will be week 15, which I believe. I think this guy's a hard worker. I think he's going to have his team ready to go week in and week out. I think everyone is going to have a lot of energy for the opener, us and Pittsburgh. It's going to be a situation where, look, you get to play under the lights. You get to play at home. But it's the opening game for both teams. Both teams will be coming out of training camp sick of beating up on each other and ready to see an opponent, Judge said. And we'll have to see how training camp plays out, obviously, with everything that's going on in the world. But yeah, I mean, that's just common sense with any sport, whether it's baseball, football, hockey. Opening day, you're always going to be a little extra juiced up, amped up, ready to go, ready to hit somebody. Especially in football, like he said, when you're hitting your teammates throughout training camp, you want to get out there and you want to play. Next thing we're going to pull up is this. This was interesting. Obviously, one of the more, and I didn't even really point to this in my video, but one of the most interesting part of the Giants' schedule this year is from weeks 5 to 10, over a 6-game stretch, the Giants play 5 divisional games, and that's very rare, right? And I think the biggest reason for it is obviously because of what's going on. They're worried they may have to push the season back. They don't want to lose the divisional games, so the Giants don't play any divisional games in the first 4 weeks. The first divisional game is against the Cowboys week 5. They then play the Eagles twice, the Redskins twice, over a 6-game stretch. So he talked about that. He talked about how that's a little bit different and why it could affect them and why it may not. It doesn't matter if they're in a row or spaced out. Division games are obviously big for you, Judge said. Those are key opponents. It definitely jumps out at you that you have 5 of those in 6 weeks, and only having a couple of weeks in between each of those opponents with the Redskins and Philly, that's sometimes a different flavor in terms of how much change can happen within those couple of weeks. How much the opponent's done differently. How much have you adjusted? That plays more into it than just having a string of division opponents. And yeah, that's a great point he brings up. Obviously, like he said, you're still going to play the same team twice a year. It doesn't really matter where you play them. But the fact that they're closer together means that, teams are going to be more familiar with one another, because if you play the Redskins week 2 and week 17, they could be a completely new team. They could have a different quarterback. They could have a ton of injuries. They could have acquired new players at the trade deadline. So being that they're playing the Redskins, and the Eagles over a 3 or 4 week stretch, you're basically seeing the same team twice, and you're going to be very familiar with one another, being that you only played them, like 14 to 21 days ago. So that's basically what he talks about there. That's the adjustment that will need to be made for all the teams from within the division, and that is the most important part of our schedule. The season will come down to those 6 weeks if the Giants have any plan to compete late into the season. I'm not even saying they're going to make the playoffs, but if they want a chance, they're going to need to win at least 3 of those 5 divisional games, and they're going to probably need to go 2-2 over the first 4 before that to keep them in contention down the stretch, because their last 5 games are brutal after that Bengals game after the bye. So they're going to need to go 3-2 in that stretch throughout those division games, and the season will come down to that. Make no mistake about it. And then finally, I think we'll be very aware of Tom being on the other team. This talking about, obviously, the Tampa Bay Bucks. Would you be excited to play Tom Brady? He used to coach with Tom Brady. At this point of the year, I'm sure everyone is going to get used to him wearing a different color jersey. I'm in a different jersey myself, Judge said. We're very conscious of the opponents we'll be playing. The Buccaneers have a very good defense. They have a ton of receivers, tons of weapons, and they made some great additions in the offseason with Tom and Rob Gronkowski. Seeking those players over there, no matter where our paths may have crossed in the past, all that's going to matter is that Monday night. And Judge, again, is saying all the right things here. He's basically saying, listen, we know that the storyline from the media, from the fans, is going to be Tom Brady coming back to MetLife Stadium, the great quarterback, going up against the New York Giants. Maybe Eli Manning gets put into the Ring of Honor that night. We'll have to wait and see. I think it'll be week 1 or week 8. Whether it's opening night against the Steelers or the night game against the Tampa Bay Bucks, and that will be the storyline for the fans, for the media. But he's saying, as a team, we're not, obviously we're worried about Tom Brady, but we're equally worried about his weapons. We're worried about the opposing defense. We're worried about the team. We're going to come up with a game plan. We're going to be very well prepared for that game, and we're going to be ready to win on Monday night. That's basically what he's saying there. And, obviously it'll be an added storyline because he's a former Patriot. He coached both Gronkowski and Brady. But I love a lot of the things he said. He seems very well prepared to deal with the media in New York and to deal with, the players and everything else. I love I always love reading the quotes from these press conferences, because Joe Judge is very, very organized when he talks, and you could tell that he's meant to be the head coach for the New York Giants. I'm looking forward to this season. I'm looking forward to seeing how the schedule plays out and watching the New York Giants hopefully progress over the course of the year. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.